Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Christine here with a discussion about the Ogres in Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires. One of the worst races in the game according to prevailing community sentiment. Every single poll, and I have done multiple polls, not just the community polls, but virtually every single poll that I've done ranks the Ogres as the worst race in the game, or at the very least one of the 2 or 3 worst races alongside Norska and Daniel. And that is a very common sentiment. They do certainly suffer from pre-order DLC syndrome, which is certainly something that I hope Creative Assembly going forward will move from. Because from my understanding on the subject, the way these pre-order DLC bonuses are made, they're using the marketing budget, they're not using the development budget, and then they get thrown in development hell or they get ignored for a very, very long time. Suffice to say, the Ogres, when it comes to them, virtually no aspect of their race actually works. Not even the combat situation, because a lot of the Ogre units, they're kind of in this weird spot, the vast majority. The Ogres themselves. They're not monsters, though they're built statistically like monsters, with few models and stats to compensate. But they're not monsters, they're not as big as monsters. They do have some really powerful charges, but in a straight-up standout fight, like, they struggle killing even basic units. It is astounding when you take a unit like Iron Guts, which are very powerful in a lot of ways, and you try and kill a unit of Goblin Archers, and they're spending a long time trying to do so. We can also talk about Grease's animation issues, or just animation issues in general. So that's one of the things that I think needs to be improved on in a substantial way. Like, if you can't even get the battle aspect done, like, I'm not sure what to tell you about the campaign situation. Now, with respect to their campaign situation, when you're thinking about the Ogres, in particular because we know Golgfang Maneater is going to be the next Legendary Lord, but with respect to Maneater, we do need a better system of Ogre contracts, because right now it is a really, really bad system. Like, for instance, over here, I just got my first set of contracts, and let's consider this situation. This is actually a very rare situation where 2 out of the 3 contracts are actually useful in some way. But then consider this. All I would get would be a pointless item that, I mean, yeah, decent enough, I suppose. But 1500 gold to take the Gates of Tsar, which would require me to go against Tretch, which I'm not willing to do because Mr. Grimgore is about to show up over here. Then you have this contract, which is actually really useful because it gives you camp growth plus 100 for all camps, decent amount of money, and is something that I can go without pissing someone off. So we do need a new contract system. As opposed to the randomization that we're currently getting with respect to contracts, we should be able to pick and choose from a selection of contracts that we can do at any particular point in a campaign for various benefits. Maybe some random generation, but not just something like, oh, every 10 turns you get the set of contracts, that you can choose one from them, and you can do so. Because right now the system flat out doesn't work. We do need new lore choices, because right now, basically, you just go Slaughtermaster, because Tyrants are not particularly great. Like, let's consider, like, a Slaughtermaster. He's not especially great either, but at the very least, he does give you some level of magical ability that you otherwise do lack. Whereas with respect to a Tyrant, I mean, there's some useful things over here, like Control, that you can go for. But then a lot of the other things that you do get are just not particularly great. Also worth saying that Ogres don't particularly generate a good amount of income from sacking settlements, and their economy is frankly abysmal. And like, consider this campaign. I have several armies over here, including this one, which is about to fight, well, a hell of a battle against Kugath, though maybe we can win that battle. We're being optimistic, aren't we? But no. Like, beyond that particular aspect, with respect to the Ogres, their economy doesn't work, their unit recruitment doesn't work the way it's handled, their settlements don't work. Inherently, the problem with the Ogres is that they're a faction that does take settlements, but the problem with their settlements is they basically offer no real tangible benefits. There is almost no benefit whatsoever, with the exception of trade resources and capturing minor settlements. Okay, you can increase your hunter capacity, but that's the only capacity you can increase. And besides, if you can get Tamarkan's defeat rate, it's, like, meaningless. So, the income that you're generating over here is meaningless. You're actually better off selling it, selling these settlements to AI factions to actually get a lot of money. This is the only reason I've made this campaign work as well as it has over here in this situation. Though, yeah, now the problem with the contract is I want to accept that particular contract, right? I want to do it, but by accepting that particular contract, I am going to screw myself over with respect to Grimgor. Because what is going to inevitably happen over here is Grimgor, he's declared war on these fellows right here. And now he's just going to barrel over here and obliterate me. I can obviously take the Yeti's Peak and sell it to him and maybe stave up the inevitability that is Grimgor. But I certainly will not have a good time with it with respect to it. But I mean, I can try and make it work and, you know, deal with some other things in the meantime. But yeah, not a particularly great scenario in a lot of ways, I gotta tell you. Not really in any way, shape or form over here. So that is absolutely a problem that I'm gonna have to deal with in this campaign. But yeah, the settlements aren't worth it except trade resources. You're really better off just cheesing it. And I've said this with Kislev and I'll say it again over here. If you're having to cheese to maintain any kind of campaign relevancy, you're not playing a good race. What's bizarre here is that Ogres have genuinely one of the worst growths for their settlements as well. Because it's not like you can get these settlements to tier 3 very fast, unlike every other race in the game. Getting to tier 3 for virtually everyone else, including the dwarves, even pre-rework, the dwarves could beat the ogres to it, let alone post-rework. But now it's like every tier settlement just generates 10 corruption, and it's like 10 growth, sorry, not corruption. You also have meat issues because the only way to get any kind of reliable meat situation is to get it from camps, which can't be moved, are indefensible. Like, it's Black Arcs were majorly updated in Warhammer 3 with the release of, what was it, the Vampire Coast, I believe, or Shadow and Blade. Yeah, I think it was Shadow and Blade, but it was based on Coast. But now, like, camps are just kind of, like, based on a really bad model. They can't be moved, they have to maintain static, they don't offer significant benefits in a lot of ways. They do produce the most money, and all of them do increase your financial capacity, but you have so few camps in a campaign. It's one thing to have a horde army as a kind of benefit. That's the reason Malachai's campaign works. But when you're relying almost entirely on your camps for everything, you're relying on them for your hero capacity, you're relying on them for income, you're relying on them for meat, you're relying on them for increasing the income for your entire faction. When you're doing so, you create inherent weakness, because inherently these kind of horde armies do have some fairly substantial issues that they're going to cause in your campaign. A lot of issues, in point of fact. And that is just not a great situation to be dealing with when you are playing the ogres in any way, shape, or form. So those are the kind of problems that we're talking about with ogres. Like, camp-wise, what's annoying about them is, like, obviously you'd want to get things like fire bellies, but you'd also want to get man-eaters, all that. I think this really sad part with ogres, more so than anything else, is like they act like they have a very limited unit roster to begin with. But some of these units, like lead belchers, their artillery, their cavalry, would be awesome. But you'll almost never use them in a campaign. One, because they're very expensive. But two, because in order to use them, you need to use those precious surplus points, which you need to upgrade, and you need a lot of them to upgrade the main settlement building, in order to actually even be able to get those structures. So those are some of the inherent problems, the ogres, and I think like CA does need to work on this. Like in this campaign, yeah, I'll get obviously that contract done, I'll get that camp growth, I'll upgrade all my camps. It's, by the way, pretty damn hilarious how you actually benefit immensely from just vassalizing a fellow ogre faction, because they just get their camps up to a higher level. Like over here, I vassalized the Pig Barter ogres, and now I've gotten their camp, which I obviously need to defend against Kugaf, who I declared our war against. Well, I declared war against him because I wanted, of course, to obliterate them. But yes, it is absolutely a problem of a system. Like, sometimes you get really lucky with a contract, and you get a good contract that gives you camp growth, but even then, you're just going to fall behind compared to other races. And unlike some other campaigns where you have, like, let's say, limited armies or limited economy, you have something that makes it work. The cults for Nakari, for instance, or the cultists for Nakari, Scarbrand's movement range. I can't really think of any kind of tangible benefit that the ogres have in their campaigns, with the exception of their ogre boys having wall breaker, which is hit or miss because it means you also can't attack units that are on the wall, but does give you significant potential in offensive siege warfare. But given issues that ogres do have in battles, especially ogre bulls or the variants of ogre bulls, it's not really a great situation. Maybe one of the things that CA should do with ogre bulls is like, yeah, add more freaking units to them, allow us to recruit basic ogre bulls from a settlement, and put the variants at tier 1 and put the iron gods at tier 2. And maybe put a hero over here from the Vestus weapon pile, and maybe, I don't know, Maneaters or something like that over there. It's just an idea, or maybe some unit of Maneaters, obviously not all of them, but yeah, it's kind of sad, like, Maneaters do require a tier 3 building. Like, maybe that they should require it for, like, the high variants, but maybe, like, just a basic version should be available from the barracks, and iron gods should be a tier 2 unit. You would have to balance it with cost, right? I mean, considering tier 2 situation, I understand there might be some issues with going with that particular approach, but, like, basically right now, it's like Gorgers just are flat out better than almost everything else you can recruit. Because oddly enough, Gorgers do perform much better than a lot of the units that you can recruit in other ways. I'm not sure I can explain. Maybe, well, it's not because their stats are necessarily better, but there's fewer models, so each model ends up being stronger for it. Also, they have Frenzy, so there's that benefit over there with it. But yeah, I mean, it's been sad. Like, Ogres had an awesome trailer, or some awesome trailers, and they are an awesome race from a thematic standpoint, but, like, the way they play, geez, I don't think I've been disappointed in a race as much as I've been with Ogres. Say what you will about Kislev, Scarbrand, etc., but, like, yeah, Ogres, well, pre-order DLC syndrome, as I called it. Questine signing out. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and enable notifications, and stay tuned for more.